Fellow citizens, Zambia, before she was called so, was once owned by a company called the British South African Company, or British South Africa Company, BSA. This point must be noted and appreciated by all the citizens who care about the history of Zambia. The BSA company, before 1900, entered into several commercial agreements, starting with the Barotseland, and later on they extended the same with other parts of the territory. But of course, the BSA company did not succeed in imposing those agreements that they wanted on the Chishimba as well as the Mpezeni. These were the two kings that opposed everything that the BSA stood for. The BSA company wanted the kingdoms to cede control over minerals. They wanted them to cede control over land as well. I'm talking about fertile land. Now you need to understand that the history to all these concessions or these agreements is embedded in treachery, manipulation, and any kind of word that you can use on the part of the BSA company. You need to understand that the only reason why the Litunga then entered into an agreement with the BSA company, ceding control over mineral rights and giving them the rights to do as they wanted in the Barotseland, was simply because prior to the coming of the BSA company, there was instability in the Lozi aristocracy. A foreigner, an Lozi, became the Litunga because of the instability over succession wrangles. And therefore, by the time that the BSA company came, finally a Lozi Litunga was installed. But instabilities were still there. So the BSA company came promising to protect the territory, that they would supply them with guns, and to protect, in other words, the security of tenure of the Litunga. So it was with that understanding that the first ever commercial agreement between a company and the kingdom was signed. Remember, each of these kingdoms did not submit to the other. The Lozi kingdom or Barotse kingdom existed as a nation on its own. The Bemba kingdom, the kingdom under Mpezeni, all these kingdoms, they were organized around the 73 tribes of our country. We need to understand that. So from that first agreement up to what happened later, there is nothing that as a nation we can look back and be proud that indeed those agreements were entered into for the benefit of the natives, as our founding fathers and mothers were called. So, after signing that first agreement, the BSA company started settling down. Then from there, they started trying to extend the same influence to other parts of the country, other kingdoms. My ancestor, the Chishimba then, put up a fight against the BSA company. He refused. So the Bemba kingdom lost the battle. They fought. Bemba warriors rose to fight against the BSA company. But they had the firepower, so they lost. And therefore, they imposed their rule by force over Bemba land. The same happened to other kingdoms. The bloodiest was the war between the BSA company and the warriors of the Mpezeni. But on 25th January 1898, the Mpezeni was captured, the BSA company defeated, the kingdom, and it was bloody, and they confiscated cattle, among other property, which today, the people under Mpezeni, the Ngonis,
The chair was, all those that are under, the chair was, I'm talking about the two kingdoms there, the biggest kingdoms in the Eastern, in what we call Eastern province today. They can file a credible claim for the property which they lost under the BSA company. Because that was a company which can be sued for that, for the atrocities that were committed. So after the last battle, the Bembas lost their battle. Then the Ngonis lost their battle. These are the two kingdoms that fought against the BSA company. So the moment after immediately after the Mpezeni was defeated, the BSA company decided to create two territories. Barotseland was called Northwestern Rhodesia. Then other parts of the country, Eastern and Northern, all these Northern, when we are saying Northern province or Northern included what we call Copperbelt today, what we call Northwestern province, Luapula, Muchinga, Northern. It was all called Northern province. And then the Eastern province. So this territory where they encountered the battles, the Copperbelt, the Bemba kingdoms, including the Ngoni kingdoms, they called it Northeastern Rhodesia. And because they didn't put up, because the Litunga didn't put up a fight, for obvious reasons, as I said, the Litunga wanted protection against invading the Ndebele's, all these who are coming to attack the kingdom then. So he entered into an agreement peacefully. And therefore, they decided to create a two kind of way, system of governance. Whereas in Northeastern Rhodesia, there were curfews. Curfews didn't apply in Northwestern Rhodesia, in the Barotseland. By 1900, the BSA company obtained what is called the Royal Charter to govern the territory. 17th August 1911, the two territories were committed and they called it Northern Rhodesia, still under the company. So it was a company that was exercising control over this republic. And by 1924, the BSA company handed over power to the crown. And Zambia, or Northern Rhodesia, became a protectorate of the British. Now, this is where I want to start from. So before 1924, it was company rule. In other words, a company decided, you can imagine that, a company decided what happened among the people. Which company would ever come? Even today, those who call themselves investors, which company would come and they begin to take the terms to the people that they are saying they're trading with? So even the Barotseland Agreement, it was all aimed at treachery, trying to find ways to take out the minerals from Barotseland and other parts of the territory. And you need to understand that when I'm talking about the Barotseland, it extends to all other regions, including Tongaland. Why? Because the Litunga then told the BSA company that all these other tribes, they are under us. And for sure, Tongas were the most peaceful of all the tribes, by the way. The Tonga nation was the only nation that didn't have a standing army, for information. Everything was very peaceful. Tongas were trading, and there's even the first evidence of trade at Ngombelede with the Portuguese. Very industrious people. The richest tribe, even before we were founded as a nation, was the Tonga nation. Very industrious. You need to understand the background of this country. The Tongas were very peaceful people. Very peaceful people. So, and I think that to have stated that no, even all these other smaller kingdoms, they are under the Barotseland, that was not quite correct. But the BSA didn't have any trouble for sure in all these other territories because they were very peaceful. Lambaland, they were very peaceful kingdoms. So, this point must be understood because I think, time allowing in conclusion, I am going to conclude to show that we are back to the rule of the BSA company in form of our own people, where our own people are behaving like a company, running the republic in the same fashion, in the same way that the BSA company once did conduct the affairs of this territory. But let me go now to 1924. What constituted the Constitution of Zambia in 1924 was the Legislative Council Order in Council. I'll repeat that. Legislative Council, order in council. It was an order in council issued by the Crown. And what was called the Executive Council, order in council. I'll repeat these two. The Constitution of Zambia as a single document didn't exist in 1924 when the Crown took over control. The British took over control. What became the Constitution were two pieces of legislation, orders in council for that matter. The Legislative Council, order in council, what we call National Assembly today. And then which is the legislative. And then the Executive Council, order in council, what we call cabinet today. So that is the executive. So these two orders in council constituted what was called the Constitution of Zambia, what you can call the Constitution of Zambia for convenience purposes. Now, one may ask, how about the judiciary? There wasn't any order in council issued with regard to the judiciary. So in other words, the magistrate courts were still under the courts in London, the Court of Appeal in London, in the United Kingdom. So that's what we can say existed in terms of the judiciary. So you need to understand that this legislature did not adequately provide for the representation of the local natives. So the first right which our founding fathers fought for was the right to vote. In the 1940s, this struggle was continued. This was not until 1953, when the colonial government appointed the Benson Constitutional Review Commission. Benson Constitutional Review Commission. And this is what brought a division in the African National Congress. Mr. Simon Mansaka Pwepwe stood up and challenged Mr. Nkumbula that if we give the colonial government power or time to go ahead with this Benson Constitutional Review Commission, they appointed a judge from Britain called Benson, it will not serve our interests. The Benson Constitutional Review Commission was aimed at entrenching the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. I have to repeat this. In 1953, remember, there was the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Malawi were once one country. So that Benson Commission was looking at means to entrench. Kapwepwe opposed, under the young nationalists, that the only idea, because it's the executive that is driving this agenda, colonial executive, and therefore it would not serve the interest of the natives, of the freedom fighters. Mr. Nkumbula said they needed to give them time to see where it would go. Kapwepwe said no, and Mr. Kapwepwe was right. That's what brought about a breakaway from Ankh. Kapwepwe stood up in that meeting. He handed over, he was treasurer of the Ankh. He handed over the papers, and he walked out. And 66 other young people resigned from Ankh and followed Kapwepwe. Kaunda resigned much later. And a week later, these 66 met at what we call the Murungushi Local Authority in Cabo. It was a bush, to decide the next course of action. It was there where the name Zambia was given. Mr. Kapwepwe stood up and said, we need to maintain the name Ankh, because all the struggles for independence are called Ankh. In South Africa, it was called Ankh. Other countries that had even gained, which were about to gain independence or gained independence in Ghana, were also called Ankh. All movements were called Ankh, African National Congress. And therefore, he said to differentiate our Ankh from Nkumbula's Ankh, we shall call it Zambia African National Congress after the Zambezi. There, Mr. Kapwepwe gave this country the name Zambia, the true founder of this country. And everybody clapped. That was the birth of ZANC, the Zambia Party. And then from there, the Zambia Party said it would be fire for fire. Cha-cha-cha was launched to oppose those constitutional reforms which the colonial masters wanted to impose upon on the people. Later, over the years, ZANC was banned, as you know. Then the United National Independence Party, which was formed by Mr. Mainza Chona and others then, who were also nationalists. So that the ZANC members decided to join hands now with Mainza Chona under UNIP. And UNIP was thematic. They focused on what they wanted.
United National Independence Party. They knew that they needed unity. So in other words, you can even safely say ZANC actually moved into UNIP, and the focus was in independence. That was 1959, when UNIP, 1958, when UNIP was born. And Cha was taken to another level. There were centers on stone throwing that were set up across the territory. Because that's all they had, stones. They didn't have means to guns. What they had were stones, and they had to stand up and fight for freedom in this country. So in 1958, there were some kind of reforms again. The colonial government was trying to bend, to listen to now these voices that had emerged across the territory by tough freedom fighters like Samu Manseka Pwepwe, Sipalo, name them, Mkanyambu Sipalo. There are many of all these, Mongoni, Liso, all these nationalists that stood up to birth our country. In 1961, bowing to pressure, there were Lancaster constitutional discussions in London. Now those discussions focused on what the British determined to be what was going to apply as the Constitution of Zambia. The people of Northern Rhodesia didn't participate in the making of that stupid so-called constitution in London, in the United Kingdom. You can't call it a constitution which applies to the people of this country. And this is the point that we need to understand today when I talk about the making of a constitution. And we need to pause at this moment and ask ourselves the question, what is a constitution? Young people. A constitution is a basic charter of the land. It's not just a legal document. It's an embodiment of the collective aspirations of their people in any country. It's beyond a legal document. It's beyond legalism. It's a basic charter. It's a supreme law of the land. It's supreme. It's superior. And its sanctity cannot be undermined by anybody, irrespective of the position he or she holds in this republic. Remember every morning, every day, that no one particular person has 2 shares in the republic we call Zambia. Every citizen, that marketeer, that young person, that farmer, has a share, 1 share in Zambia, with an equal say in the running of the republic. This is very important for all of us to understand and appreciate. So after those discussions that were held, the whole idea was to look at, now the British government then was looking at, it was looking at how they were going to increase African representation. Mind you, by then, we had a voting system which was based on, first of all, property and education. There was the upper row and lower row. Those on the lower row is 3 votes that made 1 vote. 3 people voting, making 1 vote. So, I give this example, that if you have 50 white settlers, or that means 51 white settlers, and then you have 150 Africans, they vote. They divide by 3, it will make 50 votes. 1 man, 1 vote, universal suffrage, was only applicable to the whites in our country. This is what nationalists were fighting against, majority rule. To let democracy be about the majority. And that is the owners of the republic, the people of Zambia. The people of Northern Rhodesia then, as we were called. So, from that, the numbers were increased in the legislature. More Africans were represented. Then by 1962, again, the constitutional reforms that took place increased African representation. And you need to note that the first president of Zambia, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, became prime minister in the elections that were held in 1962, thereabout. No one was a winner, but the majority, of course, seats were held by UNIP. Way before 1964, before independence. So African rulership actually started before 1964. So Dr. Kenneth Kaunda became the prime minister. But of course, there was a governor general. There was a governor general who was like head of state. Kaunda became the head of government. So, after that,
when Kaunda became prime minister and the other Africans became ministers in that cabinet, discussions were still ongoing. By the way, this is actually, it was a government of national, not national unity, it was a coalition government. If ANC wanted to form an alliance with the federal party, I think our independence would have delayed. But Mzari Mwanga Nkumbula rose. He was a minority in terms of numbers in Parliament, in the Legico. So he had to, Mr. Vernon Mwanga must be honored for one thing that he did today. Vernon Mwanga. He must be honored. If the state cannot honor Vernon Mwanga, all of us as citizens must contribute, those who are living, and we are going to be blessed. Contribute money. Contribute resources. If you have vehicles, take a vehicle to go and honor Mr. Vernon Mwanga, a living legend. Mr. Mwanga, Vernon Mwanga. Mr. Vernon Mwanga played a critical role to go and convince Mr. Mwanga Nkumbula to tell him that it was going to be better for him to form a coalition government with UNIP and not the federal party of the white settlers. In the last minute, Mr. Mwanga agreed, Mr. Nkumbula agreed. And that's how the first coalition government was formed between ANC and UNIP before independence. Blessed be Vernon Mwanga for rising above sectarianism to look at the nation which was about to be born. Blessed be Vernon Mwanga once again. Thank you, sir, for what you did for this country. Otherwise, Zambia's independence would have led like that of Zimbabwe, which was only in 1980. So, after this government was formed, a majority government, led by Kaunda as prime minister, discussions continued on the independence constitution. But again, another conference was held. It's only a few, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, Mr. Samuel Manseka Pwepo, only a few leaders attended that conference to discuss the independence constitution in inverted commas in London. So the people of Northern Rhodesia, the people of Zambia, what you call Zambia today, didn't participate in the making of that law. The law was already made by the British. They only called nationalists to go and tell them. And then it was at that meeting where the issue of the Barossa land came up, that Zambia was going to proceed to independence as an unitary state, and that all agreements that the Ritunga entered into with the BSA company would cease at independence. And the Ritunga was part of those discussions, by the way. And these things were signed for. But this is one subject that I think that we need to address much later. It's very important to the Republic. The issue of the Barossa land, to put in a clearer context and what it entails. And what it means when we're talking about honoring the Barossa land agreement. It was a valid commercial agreement, you need to understand that, with the BSA company. And in 1924, when the BSA company was handing over power to the crown, the issue of Barossa land was discussed. And the British government took over those obligations, legal contracts. The Barossa land can sue the British government. But they have to be guided on these things that I'm talking about. If you want to seek wisdom, some of us are here to guide on how we can go about all these kind of things and to enforce the Barossa land agreement and what it entails, of course, and its enforceability or justiciability, for lack of a better word. So, after those discussions were held, you must understand that the British were more comfortable with Kenneth Kaunda to be the first president and not visionaries like Samuel Manseka Pwepwe. So what they did was, President Kaunda negotiated now the British that there must be a way to maintain him as president. He was prime minister, he should maintain as president. So when the British wrote what is called a constitution, which is not a constitution at all, it was the Zambia Independence Bill, which was presented before the House of Commons in 1964. Zambia Independence Bill. Because they decided to maintain the name which Kapwepwe gave in 1953, Zambia. So the new country will be called Zambia, named after the Zambezi. Initially, the name of a political party, ZANC, Zambia African National Congress. Now, they wanted to maintain the same to be the name of the new country. Kapwepwe named this country. Someone must Kapwepwe. We need to put history into context. That's the true founding father of this country. So, after that agreement was reached,
the British on their own, they now crafted the rules for the governing of a Zambia, which now they agreed was going to be declared independent on 24th October 1964. They put a clause in what you call a constitution that the first president, in fact it's Article 10, that the first provided that the first president shall be Kenneth Kaunda in Schedule 2. So it went to the House of Commons. They deliberated on that bill, and then it passed. It sailed through, and it became the Zambia Independence Act of 1964, Section 65 of the Laws of England. A bill was presented in a foreign country called UK. Zambia Independence Act, Section 65 of the Laws of England. Then that law provided for the granting of the powers to the Queen, to the King or Queen of England, to the Crown, to provide for regulations on how to govern the newly independent country. I'll repeat this, please understand this point. The Zambia Independence Act was enacted as a statute, British statute, Section 65 of the Laws of England. That law, that Act of Parliament, provided for the powers to the King or Queen to issue royal instructions, an order in council. How can I explain this for you to understand me? When the Poname is first. An Act of Parliament, Citizens Empowerment Act is passed, and then that act provides for the powers of the minister to issue instructions. So meaning, there is a constitution, then there's an Act of Parliament which is passed. I'm talking about a normal scenario. An Act of Parliament is passed. That Act of Parliament gives the minister the powers to issue instructions on the better carrying of the law. The same happened. The Zambia Independence Act, Section 65 of the Laws of England, gave the Queen the power to issue what you can call a statutory instrument, an order in council, on how the new republic was going to be governed. So using the Zambia, invoking the powers so conferred upon the crown came up with royal instructions. They issued an order in the council, which is Schedule 2. So the crown wrote the paper, which said, Clause 10, Kaunda shall be the first president. They were imposing a president on Zambia, first president. And then they put all the regulations, the powers of the president, and they put power out of power in one man. The same powers that the governor general had, they maintained for this new president. They wanted a strong president who was friendly to them, who was not as radical as Samuel Masika Pwepwe, who was not as tough as Spalo, who was not as tough as Mungoni Liso, among the freedom fighters. Those who stood up for freedom, they didn't like them. In other words, the British elected who was going to be the first president of Zambia. The Queen or the King elected who was going to be the first president of Zambia. So it was an order in council. It's called Schedule 2. Schedule 2 of the order in council. That's what was provided for. And then it was passed on to us. Zambia became independent on 24th October 1964. And this Schedule 2, fellow citizens, what we call the constitution, is not a constitution. It's a piece of stupidity. It's a piece of nonsense. You can't call that the Supreme Charter of the land. It was decided in England. The same clauses today, when it comes to the powers of whoever is president, the same clauses, word for word, they are maintained. Even part 3, which talks about the Bill of Rights, is the same Bill of Rights, which was written by the British in Schedule 2, Order in Council, a statutory instrument, not a constitution. The Order in Council is a product of the Zambia Independence Act, a foreign piece of legislation, a foreign piece of shit. And that same piece of shit provided for that to change any provisions of that piece of shit, the people of Zambia needed to be consulted. There was a clause called a referendum clause. Understand this. The Queen wrote for us, putting powers in one person called the president, writing the Bill of Rights, everything concerning the new republic, which is not her republic. This is our country. It doesn't belong to the Queen of England. It doesn't belong to Britain. Zambia is our country. It's our land. They wrote it for us there. And they put a clause that to change anything here, these Northern Rhodesians or Zambians must be consulted. There must be a vote. So Dr. Kenneth Kaunda knew that he didn't have a security of tenure because elections were still coming. After 5 years, 1969, 5 years later, elections were going to be coming. What did he do? In 1968, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda decided to call for a referendum to end all referenda. This point must be understood because functional illiteracy in this country is very high. You have engineers, doctors. They don't understand these basic things I'm talking about the country. That's why they vote anyhow, they talk anyhow. A lot of nonsense. Because if you care about your country, if you care about your children and the future of this country, you need to pay attention to our nationhood, our statehood. It's very important. The people of Zambia didn't know what a constitution was. Kenneth Kaunda wanted to give himself the powers to start mutilating that piece of shit which was written by the British. Imposed him as president and imposed it on the people. I'm putting this into context. You must give honor to whom honor is due, not to some people that don't deserve the honor. Whatever you call them, I don't care. I have my own history, correct history. I know who deserves the honor when it comes to the affairs of this country, this nation's birthing and its statehood. So, President Kenneth Kaunda presided over the referendum and the referendum. The question was put, do you give government the power to remove that same clause that must be removed from that piece of shit? The people of Barosiland, Northwestern Province, were the only ones who voted no against that you cannot remove this clause. That clause protected that entire piece of shit. Why? Because Lozis were more educated than any other in the country at independence. That's why educated nationalists like Sparrow played a very important role in the birthing of this country. It was Sparrow who organized scholarships. He said, we need education to run the new republic.
He organized scholarships for Mr. Simon Masakapapo to go to India, among other nationalists. This issue of tribe was not there. There was a unity of purpose. So, Northwestern Province voted no, because they understood that they understood the sacrosanct nature of this basic charter. Though it was not a constitution, it was a piece of shit. They said it must be protected until the people of Zambia meet in a constituent assembly to decide on the charter of the land. All the provinces voted yes to whatever shit was presented before them. That gave now the government the power now. And they removed that referendum clause. All others were maintained. More powers to the president. Everything was centralized. Then elections were coming, remember? And it was clear to the elite government that they were going to lose the power. Simon Masakapapo resigned as vice president and formed UPP. Other cabinet ministers resigned. The first act of violence started in the Republic. This seed of political violence started with UNIP in Mufulira. They banned Kapopo from campaigning. Kapwepwe won that Mufulira seat without campaigning. He became a member of parliament. Without campaigning, he won. Now it was clear to the county government that if Zambia went to elections, you people was going to win. What happened? Dr. Kenneth Kaunda used the Inquiries Act, a British statute, a British law, to appoint the Chona Constitutional Review Commission. What are the terms of reference? To determine how a one-party state was going to run. So Kaunda decided, UNIP decided. And then you want to appoint stupidity to do stupid things to maintain stupidity. Because the one who is appointing is maintaining the control, deciding what they must do. The Chona came back and said, okay, this is how the one-party state is going to run. And that's how Zambia became a one-party state. All parties were outlawed. And Kaunda became the only person on the ballot paper. Standing with a frog. Here Kaunda, here a frog. People are voting between Kaunda and the frog. A human being reducing himself to be standing with a frog on the ballot paper. And you call that normal. At your we are a normal country. That's what happened. And from that moment, 1973, Zambia stopped ticking. All those achievements that were made in the first 5 years just went to the drain. The building of the Kariba, building of the University of Zambia, industries, UTH. The University of Zambia was built by an Israeli company, the Jews who were here. The UTH was built by Israelis. Zambia stopped ticking. Because now, the goal of the government was about self-preservation. How do you survive? Declaring humanism. All kinds of things. Now, this went on. Zambia went to the drain. Food riots started on the copper belts and there are so many difficulties that the country started facing. And leaders didn't care as long as they maintained the power. It was no longer about patriotism. It was about their stomachs. It was about their pockets. When this pressure mounted eventually everywhere, and it was clear that Zambia needed to return to multi-party democracy, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda used the Foreign Law Against the Inquiries Act to appoint the Mvunga Constitutional Review Commission. Again, government determined how to run multi-party democracy, return to multi-party democracy. So government decided what they wanted. The Mvunga Commission, now let me say this. During the Chona Commission of Inquiry and during the Mvunga, the people of Zambia across the country said they wanted cabinet outside the parliament. They made all these submissions and that they wanted the constitution to be crafted and adopted by means of a constituent assembly. Government put all those things aside. Only maintained what they wanted.
And they issued a white paper on what they wanted, rejecting what people said, maintaining what they wanted as cabinet. In 1995 and 96, the MMD government under President Chishimba, when Kaunda said was coming back to politics, they wanted to put clauses to stop Kaunda. What did they do? Manakati was appointed. Manakati Constitutional Review Commission. Same stupidity. And government gave the terms of reference to the Manakatu. They came back. People said they want cabinet outside the parliament. The people of Zambia submitted how they wanted Zambia to be run. Government put aside all those things. Instead, they put their own clauses. They issued a white paper to ban Kenneth Kaunda not to be president. Your both parents must be Zambians. Useless. Reducing the basic charter to what a few people in their stupidity are thinking. At the expense of the entire republic. As if they have more than one share. Being a minister doesn't give you 2 shares in the republic. You only have 1 share. Later, President Mwanasa became president. He appointed the Mungomba Commission. What a country we live in. Went, collected the views. He also used the Inquiries Act, remember that. The same Inquiries Act, which is not a Zambian law. Again, the Mungomba Commission submitted what Zambians wanted. Cabinet outside parliament. To separate these 3 arms of government. So that cabinet is more accountable to the people. What happened? Everything was removed. They tried to, the same thing, white paper. But there was pressure from the people. But we need to commend President Mwanasa for one thing. He said, all right, what we shall do is we are going to have a constitutional conference where we call traditional leaders, marketeers, young people, everybody. It will be a semblance of a constituent assembly. People will deliberate. You know what they'll say. For the first time, we had a president who wanted to put an end to this saga. This is scandal, national scandal. All of us are guilty. Mwanasa died. May he rest in peace. President Rupi Abanda became president. He to maintain the same principle. But before long, because he was trying to do it, I think at the time that we were going towards the elections, the people rose. Become too hot. So he didn't get it to completion. President Sata rose to power. What did he do? He appointed a technical committee to review. He said, no, this committee will review all the submissions of all the commissions of inquiry. President Sata died. President Lungu, President Memory, became president. No, the same thing going on. From there, okay, now we are going to separate. The level of stupidity in this country sometimes shocks me. You know, sometimes you begin to think, that's when you are quiet. People think that you are quiet because you can't flow. You are failing to understand the kind of thinking in the minds of the people, some people. No, we separate. People are going to vote on Bill 3, Part 3, the Bill of Rights. That thing flopped. Remember Bill 10, which is attempted to bring about. No, now bring that came later now. Oh no. This Bill 10, we want to talk about the other rights, the minority. But all kinds of stupidity, what we saw under the PF government. Though that's not the PF government. Remember, PF was hijacked, just like UPND has been hijacked. The UPND outside, those who didn't sweat, they're enjoying the fruits of the labor of the true UPND, true red. Same thing with PF. True Greens are outside. They were outside. What period was MMD ruling? Minister of Finance, Mr. Kotwane, was Minister of Finance under I'm talking about from MMD, also part of Banda, and then you can mention a few of them some of them were still in this government. They were part of MMD government. And they're also in this government. Deciding on the Minister of Finance, deciding on the economy. People who are not there.
When the true founders of UPND suffered, who are suffering just like any common citizen on the streets. Those who have gone, they're just eaters. They've just come. No. They don't care about the future of the UPND. They care about their pockets because their chances, they are not there. The same thing happened to the PF. PF, that was not PF. I can assure. That's why PF is still intact today. Because the real PF are outside. Genuinely. They are not the ones who mismanage the country. That's not PF. It's the same eaters. The same criminals. Who only know how to sell state assets. That's what they do. These are criminals. They don't know how to build. They are simply traders of state assets. Now, let me say this. Every government, from the colonial government, that has attempted to force its way to change the law, they have been voted out of power. The colonial government mistake was based on the Review Commission. They brought cha-cha-cha. They were kicked out. Kaunda tried to order this that he did, but at the end of the day, this is what saw him out of power, tampering with the law for self-preservation. Dr. Chishimba in the last minute, 2021 thereabout, wanted to change the law to go for a third term. He was kicked out of power by the people of Zambia. The PF government, I'm talking about the PF government. One of the reasons why people said no, Kadarism, including Butane, this brought so much anger in the nation. PF lost the power. Now here we are, Bill 7. Let me say this. Zambia is in the hands of the Almighty God. It's in the hands of Hashem. In the book of Daniel, in English it says Daniel, in Hebrew it says Daniel. It is written, Hashem is involved in the affairs of all nations. Hashem runs all nations. He humbled Nebuchadnezzar. He humbled many people, many rulers who thought they were the most powerful. Where is Babylon today? Where is Egypt today? Egypt is a superpower. Where is it? Israel here today. A humble nation. Humility brings preservation. Arrogance, haughtiness brings downfall. Each and every soul that is dying today because there are no medicine in the hospitals. Each and every soul that is dying today, people committing suicide. Whoever is going hungry and is crying to God, those prayers are rising heavenward. Don't take it for granted. Zambia belongs to all of us. And the prayer of which and every citizen has an equal impact. You cannot rejoice and thrive on the sufferings, on the blood and sweat of the people. It's immoral. It's incorrect. We can't be going on the same path. You can't try to manipulate a process, the law, and you think you preserve yourself. This is the quickest exit. And let me say this. The constitution, what you call the constitution, what we have in Zambia is not a constitution, it's a piece of shit. It's not a constitution, it's a piece of shit. And curse be the day that we entertained that piece of shit in our statutes. It was written outside, and the same things which were written by the British on the powers of the president, on the powers of centralizing the powers on part 3, they are the same things that were written in Schedule 2, which is not a constitution. That's not a constitution. Zambia does not have a constitution. What is a constituent assembly? A constituent assembly is an act of sovereignty by a free people, an independent people that decide on how they want to be governed. When India's independence was proclaimed, the people of India, which is the biggest democracy, met in a constituent assembly. They brought everybody, the rich, the poor, corporations, rulers, everybody sat in an assembly. And they crafted a constitution. Have you ever heard of anyone in India talking about any government talking about amending the constitution? Now this is stupidity. That you have entertained every government that comes to power. Constitution, what people want. Every time. What kind of situation is this? Can't you pause and think and put an end to this nonsense? Can't you make a difference? How can cabinet decide on the constitution? Because the constitution is, cabinet is a creature of the constitution. Parliament can't decide on the constitution because parliament is a creature of the constitution. The judiciary can't decide on the constitution because the judiciary or judicature is a creature of the constitution. Who decides? The people. How? Constituent assembly, which is above parliament. A people's assembly. And I want to speak to Zambia today. Let Zambia go in labor now. Zambia, I command you to go in labor. Let labor pains begin. And I command the four winds of Zambia. I command the four corners of Zambia. I command the north. I command the south. I command the east. I command the west to go into labor, to birth the republic. In orderliness, in unity, in liberty, in freedom, in equality. India doesn't talk about constitution making. Botswana doesn't talk about constitution making. South Africa, South Africa is newer than Zambia. Have you ever heard of stupidity of talking about the constitution in South Africa? America made 1787, 1789, 2 years in Philadelphia. They crafted the constitution. Do you hear him? Not because I'm Trump, I'm going to amend. So that I can protect myself. You cannot do that. No, please. In the name of God, I beg you, stop this, stop it. Stop this, Bill 7. You can't authenticate a piece of shit which was done by the British. It's a piece of shit. What the British did is a piece of shit. That's what I'm referring to as a piece of shit. We can't entertain that. This country is yearning for a president for leadership. That will say, for once, out of this nationalistic understanding, let the people of Zambia meet in a constituent assembly for once to put a break to that piece of shit of the British and to decide on the charter of the land, and let that assembly, because when you meet as a constituent assembly, the members of that assembly will vote and they'll say, this is what my village wants, this is what all of us, each and every tribe, each and every race, because Zambia is multi-tribal, Zambia is multiracial, multi-sectoral. Everybody must be part of the making of this constitution popularly, not sectionally. And when they decide on the charter, when they decide that this is the way, then it must be passed by a constituent assembly elected by the chair, the one presiding must be elected by the people. We need to put a break to the British. There's been this nonsense, which some scholars have been entertaining, that no, if we have this assembly, it will be illegal. How stupid. When Americans met in Philadelphia, was that illegal? They were independent. They decided, let's meet all of us to decide on the basic charter of the land. Now these people, they want to, you know what they do? When they are talking, I don't know, you see, may God help me not to say the word that is coming to my mind right now. Please, Hashem, help me not to say what I want to say. I don't want to say it. Let it pass. Let me swallow it with water. For now. At the right time it will come out, what I've swallowed. You cannot think that people are stupid. All government have said, no, we want to put the rights. We want to put the rights of these groups. Women, we want to put youth, we want to put all these kind of things. Then to be good. Who are you to decide for the people? It can't be the piecemeals. We need to put a break because Zambia is not truly independent. Because we have not exercised that right of independence proclamation, where we meet as a constituent assembly and promulgate, craft and promulgate a true charter of the land that every villager will know. And the constitution should not be a legal document. It's bulky. No, it's a very simple document. It will touch on the three arms of government, straight to the point. It will touch on the rights of the citizens. It will take the power to the people. Creation of districts. For we in the UPP have been talking about counties, taking power back to the people. People deciding in local authorities, the chiefs deciding on land matters, giving them, recognizing them as royals, and recognizing each native authority. If the colonial government recognized native authorities, who are you and I not to recognize that? So we need to give all the awarenesses, the chiefs, the powers to speak about all these things. These are the true royals. You can't take away the power to rule from royals because theirs was appointed. Their appointment was by God. Those are ancient kingdoms who must be respected. If we can't respect our roots, if we can't respect our structures, then we are casing ourselves as a nation. So this Bill 7, take it to your farms, shelve it, it can be in your libraries. For this Bill, I can assure you, there is no government that has attempted to manipulate the process in Zambia which has survived. Just go to the people. Let's speak to the people. What we have delivered, what we are trying to do, and never use any dubious means to impose yourselves on the people. If you are lacking wisdom, consult us, come. We speak, we'll gather, please do this. Why are people not happy? Go to the people. Why are they disenchanted? Go to the people. It's very simple. Go to the people. Listen to the people. Do what the people want. Electricity is not too much to ask for. Low cost of living is not too much to ask for. Scrapping of useless taxes is not too much to ask for by the people. Jobs is not too much to ask for by the people. Rights to mining, where you guide them, you help them. Don't declare them illegal. Help them. It's not too much to ask for. These are basics that the people want. The people of Zambia want housing, they want food, they want water, clean water and sanitation. Very simple. You have the instruments of power. Don't be ill-advised. Don't listen to such people. Listen to people who speak the truth, because the truth will set you free. For want of time, we'll not touch on the rule of law. That will be for later. Rule of law. Very important. Thank you.